Say a prayer and give a quick thought as well.
All right.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for our blessings. We ask that the Spirit might be with us. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
So, I'm a big outdoors guy. I like being outside, and I was looking at I was remembering whitewater rafting. And hey, Kristen.
Hello.
We're broadcasting. We're just going through a quick spiritual thought I was given real quick.
Go ahead.
So I was going through I was whitewater rafting a couple summers ago, and one of my favorite parts of whitewater rafting, we'd get through a rapid section in Jackson. It's called Lunch Counter in Big Kahuna. And during June and early July, they're class 4 rapids. They're big, nasty rapids, and then they slack off later in the year. But we would go through a little 2-man inflatable raft. And we'd get out and park our raft, and then we'd hike up, and we'd just float through them on life jackets. And just hold your breath and get air when you can and just go through the rapids, and it's going to suck you down. You drink a bunch of water you're not supposed to, but it's a lot of fun. And it taught me something, though, about what the gospel is to me. And I think the church, more focused towards the church and the gospel, but also with the gospel, life is kind of like that river. There's times when it's super calm and you can be out of your raft and you can just swim around, and it's a lot of fun. You don't have to worry about it. But then there's other parts of life, and it can switch within a heartbeat from being nice and smooth to being a rapid that's going to suck you under, and you might come up downstream, or it might just kill you. You don't know. And the raft, you still get wet, and you're still exhausted by the time you go through a rapid section. But you made it through. And the gospel to me is that raft, and life is like that river. And staying in your boat, staying close to the gospel and close inside the church, it's still exhausting. Life is still hard. There's still a lot of trials. But it is safer and it is easier to go through that way than to just get messed up in the water. Anyway, I'll leave in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Let me bring this up. Here. Okay. So, what are the possible causes of Progresso's poor sales performance?
Just that since they were looking at the retail banking industry mainly for like Hispanics, for the Hispanic culture, they had a handicap first off. Like they weren't being able to generate back-end data, and since the DMS, they didn't have any managerial experience, and they were teaching themselves. That sort of played. Those were key factors in why they weren't successful in my eyes, at least.
Yeah, I thought their systems. I like the idea. I like the business model, but their systems that they have in place just don't work. They're not managed well. Their incentive system wasn't working well. And then their partners that they ended up getting, the Sears and Kmart, was a poor decision. Yes, they got in more locations, but Sears wanted other people to get the Sears credit card more than come get a loan from them. And then their employees didn't help. The Sears employees were not moving people to Progresso. And then to top it all off, Sears and Kmart, business-wise, are not doing well. So you're not getting a lot of traffic through those locations either.
Well, actually, I think that the case study indicated, we had the issue. I think they solved I think that the Sears thing was a wise move. It just needed some tweaking. And the reason that they didn't forward, the cashiers didn't forward them over to Progressive because they weren't getting commissions.
Right.
And so, but towards the end there, I think it said that 2/3 of their income was coming from that partnership.
A lot was by the end.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of one of the things that is a little bit unusual about this case study is that, you know, we look at all the issues, and it appears that they clearly addressed a lot of these issues. And I think that a lot of the stuff I would have even recommended that they do, they all did. But the difference between this and the noodle case study is that it didn't work.
Yeah.
So I guess the question really, I think that the model is validated. I think that everything that they did makes sense, and if they were making money, I think that the issue is now they've got to come up with what the real issue is, you know, for what's happening for their company.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah, and I will say to you that I think that their primary issue is that they're not using bankers. They're using low-wage, Hispanic-speaking people who may not be able to answer the questions that people feel comfortable getting done. And so I think that what they needed to do, I liked how they went ahead and put the kiosk workers and the account executives in uniforms. They need to pay a higher price and get bankers in there.
Yeah, they need a little bit better support staff. Staffing wishes.
They should outsource to hiring, to like a hiring agency, right? To bring in those.
Another concern of mine is what their recruitment, you know, using Craigslist. I mean, when they brought in, was it Dudley?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, he started using other resources, but I think because this is the key spot, this is the face of their company. They can't afford to skimp here.
I agree. I thought they might look to adjust the variable amount, your commission base on, so to provide greater incentives, like lower the amount of loans you have to do before you start getting the higher commission. Like right now at 0 to 14, you get absolutely no commission at all. And so when they went down to LA, they just weren't getting commission because they weren't making enough loans. So then the people just kind of, it said the employees became uninterested in fighting for the commissions and were just happy with $8 an hour.
Is that when they decided that like they weren't making enough money in the Sears and Kmart, but that they could make enough if they opened up more kiosks? Is that around the same time that was happening?
To go down to LA and try.
See if it didn't really work out there.
And it totally bombed.
Okay.
I thought maybe anyway, that's number 5. So I'll go back up to the right problem.
So what I want you to also, before we leave number 5, I want you to know I actually did the calculations on this and was in for a little bit of a surprise. So I'll show you what I came up with then. Okay, so how much profit does Progresso earn on a new loan with the current number of loans per month at a grocery store location? Did anyone do that calculation?
I did a little bit, but I didn't. I wanted to see if you could help me out or shed some light on it.
Here's what I've got. So on I think it's page 5, it identifies that the overhead, not including labor, was $2,000.
Yes.
Okay, and then they had approximately two to 3 people, but a total of 2 full-time employees. Bringing it in at 80 hours per week at $8 an hour, we're looking at $640. Now, what they didn't put in there is they didn't identify the DSM labor. So the district sales managers, all of the account executives reported to just 3 district managers, which I put it in 120 hours, and I put them in at $10 an hour. I just didn't know what to put them in at.
Right, because there's no information on that.
I'm not seeing it. So I put it in at 10, and that number really does impact everything else. But when we come down here, we look at the number of stores, And then we take this price right here. In fact, I should probably just go ahead and put that in so that if I come back and realize that I did get it, it'll change everything. So then based on the number of stores, the average cost per location, this is what the total costs come up for a total of $92,000. Then on page 5, it identifies that they take that the average is $900 per loan.
Right.
$180 is what they get from that.
Right.
Okay, so I put in here that it does not include. I'm not quite sure how I want to manage that yet, because it doesn't say that it's the cost of money. But we know from the case study that they buy their money from somewhere, charge a higher interest rate, and so we have to assume that 180 is what their take is.
Right. That's what I understood.
Did you do anything with the 26% APR that they were charging on top of the 36%?
No, they weren't charging that on top of the 36%. The 26% included the origination fee of $45 and the 26%.
So it was just a 36% overall?
Correct. Yeah. So the 36%. So what I did then is I brought this in.
Did you do a monthly payment?
A monthly payment.
It's pretty hard to do a monthly payment unless you know for sure we know what the average loan was. We don't know what the exact loan was, though.
Because I did something like that with a $900 balance, and then with a $115.59 payment per month, and then the initial interest or initial expense was like $27, and then I just the principal was like $88.59, and then I just kept reducing it until it got down to a zero, and I have 9 months.
Yeah, I actually looked at doing that also, but it just became so complicated. Essentially, they're just looking for a break even. So even if it takes 10 or 12 months, at the end of the day, they make 180.
Yeah.
So I just simplified it. So they need 171 break even for the grocery stores, 128 for Sears, and then so a total of 512. Now, of course, I'm unclear whether I can't imagine that the costs are annual. I mean, because at this point, I'm putting it.
Yeah, that's a monthly loan amount.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to put it in monthly. Monthly costs.
So at least at the grocery locations, they're averaging 346 loans per month.
Okay, so for this question, it asks, of course, what do they need to break even? So this is what they need every month to break even.
Okay.
Okay. At least this is my calculation for it. So for the calculation that we do for the actual unit, we probably could go in there and then, take something like this and then identify how much profit they're making. So right. Is that already shown in here? Financial apps. Yeah, these aren't dollar amount. No, these aren't dollar amounts. They're not giving us dollar amounts of what their profits are. Just the numbers of how many people or how many loans they do and how much has been dispersed.
Right.
So, and how many active accounts they have. So, okay, so that's what I've got. Anything you're thinking here that's not right?
You explained it. I think you got it. Like I couldn't explain mine, so I don't think I have mine. Understand it all. I'll get it by the submission date.
That's like the fourth table I did, by the way.
This was a little bit trickier than the ones we did over the last week.
Yeah. Mostly because of the assumptions that we have to make.
Yeah.
I did a lot of reading on this.
Let's go back to the compensation plan. So this is the current pay right here. Okay, it says they pay $8 an hour, and at 40 months. Now here's what they said in the case study. At 40 loans, they'll make $30,000. However, that's not what I'm seeing here. So this compensation right here is 40 times 30. So if they do 40 loans at $30 a commission,
Right.
they're only getting $1,200. And at $8 an hour at 40 hours a week, that's only $17,800.
A week, a month?
That's annually.
That's a year.
So this number right here identifies. Oh heck, hang on a second. What number is that? Huh? When am I looking at that? Hang on a second. Oh, times 52 weeks. So this is the average. So for the week, the amount, the average pay per week times 52 weeks. That gives us what their base salary is right here.
Right.
So here are my 8 options. So if we'd stayed at 8, they'd actually have to each do 385 loans to be, so at $35 per loan to make it at 30,000. I don't think that's realistic if they're struggling at 40.
Well, that's their total monthly grocery loans they give out total.
That's what I'm doing.
All location.
Hang on a second. I need to multiply this times 12. Oh, it changes everything. Annual commission. I don't even know if that's spelled right. Okay, so then this is this times 12. So that changes everything significantly.
No, that's pretty close.
There it is. So 40 is it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's way good.
I have to go back to work this. If you guys wanted me to take a minute, I'll do it and then we can hash it out, but it's going to take me just a second.
So how would we, while you're working on that, we'll throw some ideas on how do you improve the number of loans made per month? Do you try to lower that, either raise the commission amount earlier, or do you try to lower the amount that you get commissions on when commissions come in?
Well, so down here I've doubled the amount of the commissions
As they come in.
Think about these numbers here.
Right.
All right. So let me come back in here. So at $8 an hour, so if we stayed at 40, it would be 35, 30. Okay, this changes the numbers significantly. If they went up to, so this is kind of the option that I like right here, a non-commission.
1 second, I'm listening. I'll be right back. One of the guys that just cut his hand, so I'm gonna be on mute and I'll keep listening.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't think that I don't think offering commission's really good. It doesn't. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, my contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're just trying to compete with the other company by trying to offer, commission, but I guess that's how these type of jobs work. But I wouldn't want to do that, like you're saying. Just right now, just maybe implement it later and tell them, as of right now, we're not gonna give you commission, until you reach a higher mark or something. I don't know. So this is 6.
This is let me get this through here. 7, 8. Okay. this is question number 5. That's what we're looking at, is the different compensation opportunities. The thing is that I think that if they're utilizing a higher quality person.
No, right. What would that do?
I mean, you'd almost have to bring them in at about
higher pay.
You'd almost have to bring them in at $15 an hour, and then provide for them, the compensation or the. Sorry.
So what's going on with them then right now, and them hiring people from Craigslist? What's that doing to their company? First of all,
morale is the primary issue. By the time we finish the case study, the primary issue now is morale. And so what they did, of course, do is that they switched some of the staffing around, and I can't remember the name of the guy. I'd have to go back and look. But the guy that they changed was the one who was I think it was was it Ula?
I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah, I think he was the one. I don't know, maybe it was Dudley. One of them was had done really well in the operations side of things and just went gangbusters. So they moved him into the sales to deal with the morale issues, which he did. And they had a significant increase in sales. The problem that we ran into is that even if they're all feeling better about themselves now, we're still dealing with uneducated, inexperienced staff who is the face of the company. And I think that is what the key issue here is that they just have people who aren't qualified for the job. And it doesn't matter how much you pay them, they're still not qualified.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all right. So for us to mess around with the base hourly wage, this is where we'd be. Now, of course, they said here, don't waste time trying to figure out a way to break even with lower number of loans. So this one here, base. So these ones here probably are not going to be accepted. The 30 option 1 is the one that has to be accepted as far as less loans. So it seems to me like they're in this direction right here. They're saying that they're going to go commission based. They're not going to go just flat wage.
Right.
Well, the other thing we could do is we could also look at eliminating the commission and just go to a quota base, which I kind of think is what they're doing here. Right here, there's nothing. And you actually start making the amount.
Yeah, it's commission, but the commission's based on quota.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind. I just wonder if it would be if it would be better to just drop the quota so you get commissions coming in earlier, or what, or raise
or dock their pay if they don't meet it.
Well,
some companies
will do that. You're going to hurt morale that's already suffering.
And people need to know what they're getting.
Then that, if they don't meet them, then the managers will be able to fire people and be like, well, we got to hire qualified people that are going to be able to meet quota. And if they're getting angry at getting their pay docked, then they can quit because they'll probably just keep decreasing in numbers.
We noticed in the thing where they talked about recruitment, where they started doing their training, and they spent a couple of days with training, and they actually had people who left and people that they asked to leave during the training. So I think that they were able to weed out who had whatever ideal. I think that, again, we go back to the bottom line is the ideal is they're just not hiring the right people. But yeah. Back to the compensation thing right now. Tell me what you were saying again a minute ago, Ammon. about what your comments were?
On what exactly?
What they needed to do for compensation.
So right now, you get an $18 commission, but only when you reach 15 loans minimum that you disperse.
Right.
So I thought the ways you might be able to further, I guess, the desire to make commissions are either to lower the amount. So say at 10 loans, that commission comes in. So you lower the amount, the loan dispersal quota before the commission comes in, or you up the commission amount on the higher and leave the quota as is. I personally think it would be more effective to lower the loan dispersal amount and bring in a quota coming in at say 10 to 14. Say you get your commission is $15, and then keep the same thing on. That way, when people are getting less loans, they start getting commission, which then provides incentives for them to get more, to generate more loans moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so this number right here is identifying
Okay.
percentage. This right here is identifying.
Wait for me out there. I'll be right there.
Oh, okay.
Don't leave without me.
No, I'll be here.
What the percentage is they're paying.
Right.
So.
So that's it. 10%, right? That's what that shows?
10% is what they're paying between this amount. So they're getting paid 20%.
At the high amount.
Yeah, I don't know why this is not working right.
So if they were to drop and say come in with a commission at an 8% commission at 10 loans. My theory on it, commission at an earlier point in the structure, that because what happened in LA is they weren't reaching the 15 loans dispersed, so then they weren't, and they began settling just for their $8 an hour. They didn't get to and they just stopped really pushing for it.
Right.
And so my thought is, if you lower the loan dispersal amount to say 10, then you're giving people a taste of, wow, there's a little bit of extra money here. There's several $1,000s more that I can be earning and the more you achieve, the more you get, the more money you get. And I thought that if you can provide those incentives, you'd be better off.
So
I'd work harder if I knew I'd get more money. So that makes sense to me.
Well, and they know the things are there. They just don't think it's achievable. It is, but they've never reached that 15 goal, so they don't think it's achievable. If it comes in at 10, and they achieve it, maybe they try a little, innovate and try harder on a different one. I don't know.
Well, I'm not feeling like by doing that, we're really impacting the cost to the company. So let's just say we got rid of the minimums, because it's clear that it appears to be a morale killer.
Yeah.
So what if we just did 1 to 20 and then kept everything else?
I see, and I'd be fine with that. I think that would help fuel growth. I think people would work harder if they're getting commission right from the start.
I don't got a lot to say on this one. Sorry.
You're good either way.
Yeah, just tell me what to do. I'll go work.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's the way for us to look. Okay, so will you manage activities all right, so once you've made your changes to the compensation plan, develop a broader action plan to include specific activities. Will you manage activities or results? I'd say we need to manage activities, which ends up impacts results, right?
You can't really manage the back end and expect the front end, what you're doing now on the front end, to give you a different back end result. You have to change the front end and it gives you a different back end result.
So we got to manage the activity.
So
yeah, you didn't manage it.
So he
Go ahead. Danny,
I saw. I was saying earlier, he grew first before he was profitable, didn't he? Isn't that like why he had a problem trying to work on the front, and then having
he
all that in the back?
He had a good model. He just didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
So didn't like Gutierrez? Didn't he take the initiative into like starting to help build the company? Like, wasn't he like they're trying to raise funds and like trying to do everything?
Oh, absolutely.
And part of the reason he expanded his operations in different regions, like going to LA, was because he wanted a partner in another store, and they said,
more activities, right?
You can make it down here too. So then he said, okay, we'll go down there, and then it didn't work. So then they lost the partner. That was with the electronics retailer.
But the issue is he had a good model, and the model was good. His market was good, which is why he carried as long as he did. The issue that he had is that he had no finance background, and he didn't know how to manage or track the money, and he didn't have enough of a business experience to watch the throughput. And he couldn't actually go in and identify where the breakdown was occurring in the success. That's a key requirement. Because if you don't know where the problem is, you cannot fix it, which is what this whole thing was about. All the things he found out that was wrong and all the steps he did. So now at this point, he's fixed everything there is to be fixed, and it still doesn't work. So now we've got to identify what the next problem is and go from there.
Right.
Okay, so will you keep your current account executives?
I didn't know what those were. I just put yes.
Yeah. So the account executives, these are the ones who are working in the kiosks. The ones who are.
Oh no.
I have.
no. If they're not qualified, no.
Yeah. Well, with our new compensation plan, which means there is no minimums, of course they're going to stay.
So, but I think we still need to find new AEs. We need to find ways to train those that can be trained to stay. And then as we go forward and hire new people, they need to be qualified.
Yeah.
All right. So on the compensation, so at this point, we're clear that we're going to eliminate the minimums on commission. But what about quotas? Do we need to have each one perform?
I think so.
Yeah. Yes.
What would that number be?
25 per month, roughly.
Well, if they're expecting that they're having it 30, 25 almost gets us there. But what we could do is we could roll out a benchmark that, for the first 30 days, they need to have a certain amount, 60, 90, and then, of course, moving forward.
After the 90 mark, is there still benchmarks? Is there still that quota that they have to meet? Or is it just to prove that they're good enough sales, representatives of our company, the financiero?
They have to meet the quotas. And I would also say putting a 90-day probation. So if they're not meeting those quotas by 90 days, we can either
go terminated.
Yeah.
We won't need their services anymore. Okay.
Yeah, I'd put a quota on it. I'm not sure exactly how high I'd put the quota. My mind is telling me right around 20.
So 20 at 30 days.
Yep. And then bump it up.
25 at 60, 30 at 90, and at 120, we need to be at a solid 40.
I would say that's probably a pretty fair requirement.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else got anything else they want to say? Are we ready to wrap this up?
Let's wrap it.
All right. Here it is.
Okay.
The possible causes of Progresso's poor sales performance Of course, the case study went through a lot of those that got addressed, but we think that the primary issue is that they just don't have qualified personnel. They did, of course, spiff them up by putting on uniforms, and they did provide them more training. But at the end of the day, they're not, they don't have backgrounds in finance, and they aren't bankers. And they don't have the ability to answer questions that people need when they're talking about their money. The business model, pretty much all of it is validated by the time we get to the end of it. He did bring in qualified management. He started his call centers, all providing different specific supports. But all of them were dialed in, but it all came back to the sales and the qualified kiosk personnel. How much profit did they earn on a new loan with the current? So in order for them to do their break even, we determined that break even on a grocery store was 171 for each store. Sears was 128 and 213 based on the number of stores and the cost per location, which we took an estimated $10 for labor for the DSMs and 8, which was given to us, plus the 2,000, which is right at about 3,800. Compensation. So we decided to change the compensation by eliminating all commissions, minimums, meaning so they'll still receive commissions, but they get them from the very first one that they sell. And then we would implement quotas based on 120 days. So from the time that they are hired, in the first 30 days, they need to reach 20, on 60 days, 25, at 90 days, 30, and then 120, 40, and more moving forward. Any shortfalls in that time frame would just require additional training or separation from the company. And number 6, when you manage activities or results, we determined that we need to manage activities because the results come from the activities that we go. And as far as keeping the current AEs, we do expect them to stay with the new compensation plan, but we do expect that we need to replace them based on the levels of quotas that they're not meeting. And where would we find the new ones? We would go for banking people, and we'd have to raise it up from looking at Craigslist and start looking at maybe monsters.com, where more professional people will actually look. Guys?
Sounds good.
All right, let's wrap it up.
All right.
All right, so we'll see everybody.